So today I want to go over some things that I learned in 2020 that I didn't have probably a strong enough grasp on in 2019. And these things I'm absolutely going to carry over into the next year, and they are a part of my business plan going forward. So I've got 5 things after some reflection, after this sort of long weekend. This is the 2nd of January, 2021. And yesterday, I just started to think about how different uh, 2020 was, especially when you compare it to the previous year, which for me was a record breaking year. And we had some really high expectations for 2020. Not all of those things were met. Some of them were kind of a surprise that came up, and we crushed some goals and fell short on many others. But I think we would be foolish not to look back and think about what we learned, think about how business has changed, not only for the parts business, but for the markets in general. People are shifting the way that they purchase things, and parts is no different than that. If you had an online presence already set up going into 2020, you probably broke some records, and that's some great foreseeing on those managers' parts, those teams' parts. And regardless of whether your year was record breaking or you lost half your business, I think that you should take some time to reflect and to write down some things that you learned. And maybe this can help you think about some of those things through what I learned. So let's go ahead. Let's get started with number one. So the first thing I learned, never overreact to things that you cannot control. 2020 is the perfect example of looking at external factors that you just absolutely cannot control. And even though that they affect your business, you still can't control, the mass hysteria and how the media portrays certain things. And, all of these external factors that deeply, deeply affect how you run your business, number one, but also how you manage your team, and so when we have employees who are super concerned and worried and scared, when we're at the very beginning of all this, not overreacting to things you can't control means, in that case, ensuring that we are calm and we're handling things intelligently. And we have some confidence and some conviction in the decisions that we're making, and the things that we're doing going forward. And I just think that 2020 was a great example of kind of showing people that, look, you can't focus so much on the things that you cannot control, but you have to be able to pivot. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to adjust to the things going on around you, knowing that it was completely unexpected, and knowing that it could be a detriment to your business. The second thing I learned was the true nature of the people I work with and the people who work for me. I saw people step up, that I would have never thought would have the ability or the confidence to do so. They stepped up and they led. They led through the slumps. They led through the crazy times. They stayed calm. They stayed smart. And they knew that it rested on them, whether they were the janitor or the GM. How you portray yourself when you're in public or when you're at work, when you're in a group with your team, it spreads. It spreads to everybody else. So if we have a bunch of people running around like crazy and they're super worried and stressed out, well, everyone's going to start to feel that way and act that way. But I just saw some people who, they stepped up, they led, they stayed calm. And the result was a safe place to go when we were at work. The result was building trust with the team, and like I said, it could be from the janitor to the GM. But I just saw some folks who took the plunge. They said, look, I'm not going to let external factors control how I react or how I act in general. And that's a huge leadership quality. And those are people I'm going to keep around forever. The third thing that I learned as I was thinking back through 2020 is that focus is the most valuable asset in the world. I saw so many people completely lose their focus in 2020 due to everything that was going on. If that happened to you, then it's really important that you do some reflection and you build into your plan some focus in 2021, because if you can't focus, if something external is knocking you out of your focus, well, how can your team expect to rely on you? How can your team expect that you're going to make the right decisions for them and for their families? You have to remember, if you're a manager, if you're a leader, if you manage a P&L with a team, not only those people are relying on you, not only the business is relying on you, your GM's coming down on you, whatever, but there's families involved. There are people who rely on you to make the right decision and you to have focus and to know what to do next. And it's okay to feel scared to make a decision, but being decisive and staying focused is 80% of what makes you successful in those endeavors. So, those of you who had record-breaking years this year, congrats to you. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you had a really high level of focus, not only this year, but previously. And as I said, it's the most valuable asset in the world, because those who could not stay focused this year, well, we saw what happened to those businesses. And it's not always someone's fault, but you have to understand, the way that I look at leadership, the way that I look at management is through the lens of what I call extreme ownership, or what Jocko calls extreme ownership, if you haven't read that book. And so the successes and the failures of the business that I run, they rest on my shoulders. Whether it's Parts Innovations, whether it's my team at the dealership or in my automotive group, everything that happens is my fault, period. And as I said, you can't control some of the things that happened in 2020, but you can accept ownership of not being set up in the right way, of not having a plan to fall back on, of not sticking to some fundamentals. So all of this is to say, focus is the most valuable asset in the world. And if you don't have it, well, it's likely that you're going to lose in the future. The fourth thing I learned sort of ties in with number 3, but that is that fundamentals are absolute key. I learned to just cling to my fundamentals more than ever. I have a specific set of principles and operational excellence guidelines that I adhere to every day, and it was never more important to have those things sort of lined out and guide me through everything that happened this year. And I've posted about this before if you follow me on LinkedIn. And this is why I posted it, because I think it's important that everyone think about this. This is why I go back and I reflect on what has happened, because I know that if I didn't have these principles and these guidelines for myself, that I would not have achieved what I achieved in 2020, and I just would not have learned what I learned in 2020. So let me take you through the 10 what I call operational excellence guidelines. I have this posted up in my office. I have a copy of this that is given out to each one of my employees, and this is just how we operate. So number 1, I will take care of my work equipment and physical surroundings, keeping them in order and organized. Everything I touch will be better off than I found it. Number 2, I will develop myself mentally and expand my capacities for work through regular training. Number 3, I will not waste time. Time is money in all aspects. Number 4, I will not waste the money of the department. Money is hard fought and should be treated as a precious resource. Number 5, I will set goals that I will strive toward each day. Number 6, I will excel at my job in order to become the number 1 in the industry. Number 7, I will be humble and not allow my ego to negatively impact my decisions. Number 8, I will put the team before myself in all situations. I will help my team achieve their goals to the best of my ability and treat them with the utmost respect. Number 9, I will control my emotions and not allow my emotions to negatively impact my decisions. Number 10, I will be ready to serve the team and our customers at all times, regardless of whether I feel like it or not. And then on the very bottom here, it says commitment to excellence. So these are the guidelines, the operational excellence guidelines that I've laid out for myself, that I've laid out for my team. It's not just for me, it's my expectations for the people who work for me as well. And this can be used as a fantastic coaching tool, but it can also be used as a way to guide the behaviors of people when you're not around, and to guide the decisions of the people you manage when you're not around. They can take a look at this and say, well, based on this, I can't waste time because time is money. So I should make this decision, right? Or whatever it is. It can be a multitude of things. But if they have some commandments to go by, you don't necessarily have to be hovering over them. They already know what your expectation is. And so it was extremely important for us to have this in 2020. And of course, I've had this for a while. So it was nice because everyone already knows what my expectations are, no matter what's burning down outside. These are the fundamentals. The fundamentals are the absolute key to our successes in 2020. And they weren't all successes. We had a lot of failures. We had a lot of customers who just completely went under, that we would have never expected. And we lost a lot of business, but we also won a lot of business. We also realized that we can't just rely on the things that we've done in the past to let us skate through the year and ride the wave of the economy. The past 4 years, that economic wave has really made us look really good, truth be told. So to say that your growth was induced by you, or was it induced by the economic wave, that positive economic wave? So we learned to reach out and expand our operations, and these guidelines helped us make the right decisions to be able to do that. So that was number 4, which is fundamentals are key. All right, the last one, number 5, is the power of clarity is immense. And I'm talking about clarity on the mission, clarity on how to act, how to feel, how to react, and all in accordance with who we are as a team. This is why I posted that 2021 business planning guide. You have to have a North Star, a guiding light, and you never know what's going to happen. We saw that this year. But if you don't have a plan already in place, you're going to lose. You're going to lose whether there's a pandemic or whether there's not a pandemic. And by the way, staying the same is losing. That is losing. So if you're staying the same, if you're going into 2021 without a plan after everything that's happened, and by the way, partsinnovations.com, there's a free course, just as all of my courses are. It is completely free, and it gives you all of the tools necessary to plan your year. If you can't take 10 minutes of your time to line those things out, you're going to lose. And you might as well not even be listening to this podcast, because this is not for you. This is for people who are pushing the boundaries, who are attacking, and they understand the power of clarity, the power of having an actual plan. So clarity means that you know how to stay the course. You know how to stay on the path because you've outlined the path. If you have not outlined the path, you have no clarity. You have no clarity, and you will lose. Your competitors will dominate you, and maybe you don't care. Maybe you're someone who just sort of relies on what their service department does and calls it a day. And as I said, if that is you, this probably is not the right podcast for you. I know from experience and from talking to most people who listen to what I have to say that most people, that is not them. But what I'm telling you right now is that I'm giving you the tools necessary. And I'm not saying that they're the greatest tools in the world. I'm not saying that you can't find better, but I'm saying that it's better than nothing. I'm saying that you need to get on to that course if you haven't already, and you owe it to your team to have a path going forward. especially coming out of this year. So those are the 5 things that I learned in 2020. And those are the things that I'm going to keep in mind as I progress through 2021. And again, I owe it to my team to adjust as a leader, to pivot as a leader, and to get better for them, to get better for their families. The fact that we lost some business this year rests on my shoulders. And on the other side, the fact that we gained a lot of business, I take ownership of that as well. And so does my team. They know that they're a pivotal part in all of those things. But take some ownership, have some clarity going into 2021. We are early January. We're hoping for a huge year this year, but it's going to take some reflection on our part as the leaders, as the parts managers of our businesses, to figure out what we didn't do right last year. And I know there's a lot, but write those things down. Do some reflection. What are the 5 things that you learned? Can you think back and put your ego aside and actually look at how you failed last year? And if the answer is that you didn't, well, then again, you need to put your ego aside. We all failed somehow last year. So check out the business planning course on partsinnovations.com. You can find it on my LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much for listening. Again, I hope that you go back and do some reflection yourself and take these principles into 2021.